open any of the three sacred books that changed half of humanity, the Torah, the Bible, and the Qur'an. In each, there is a story about a great flood. And in each, there are details that are found nowhere else on the planet. The length of the ship is 300 cubits. The width is 50. The height is 30. There are 3 decks, a door on the side, and the material is tarred wood. In the Torah and the Bible, this is described in the 6th chapter of Genesis, word for word. In the Qur'an, in Surah Hud, verse 40th, the prophet Nuh receives the same instructions directly through revelation, 3 texts, recorded in different eras by different peoples in different languages. Between the first and the last, there are almost 2,000 years. They agree on the main points. Now compare this with what was written by their neighbors in the Sumerian epic of Atrahasis, recorded in the 15th century before Christ, 1,000 years before the Hebrew text appeared. Utnapishtim's ship is simply a cube with equal sides, 6 decks, 120 cubits in every direction. In the Indian Matsya Purana, there is an unnamed boat being towed by a giant fish. For the Maya, it is a hollow ceiba tree. For the ancient Greeks, it is Deucalion's wooden chest. None of them provide a single dimension or an engineering detail. Only in the Abrahamic tradition, where Judaism, Christianity, and Islam converge, does the description read like a technical specification. In 1994, the Korean Research Institute of Ships and Ocean Engineering, KRISO, conducted a series of hydrodynamic tests. They built a computer model of a vessel with exactly the biblical proportions, 300 by 50 by 30. The ratio of length to width was 6:1, and they ran this model through 10,000 different storm conditions. The result was published in their report, Safety Investigation of Noah's Ark Seaway. The Ark turned out to be almost perfectly balanced for survival in an open, stormy ocean. The 6:1 ratio is the same one used by modern cargo tankers. The probability of capsizing in a severe storm is 1,000 times lower than that of conventional vessels optimized only for cargo capacity. The Sumerian cube would have overturned at the first serious wave. The Abrahamic figures did not. The question is not which of the 3 books is correct. All 3 traditions, the Torah, the Bible, and the Qur'an, describe a single event, agreeing on details and complementing each other. The question goes deeper. Where did these details come from in the first place? Who in the Bronze Age knew the proportions that humanity only rediscovered in the 20th century? The answer may lie at the bottom of the sea, 200 kilometers north of the mountain where, according to all 3 books, the Ark stopped, and when the underwater vehicle of Robert Ballard, the same man who found the Titanic, raised the first wooden beams from there in 2000. One of the expedition members uttered a phrase that the press later tried to forget. "We have just looked into the book of Genesis." Imagine the year 5,600 before Christ, the territory of modern Turkey. The eastern coast. You are standing on the shore of a vast freshwater lake. The water is warm, shallow, and clear. The air smells of reeds and wet clay. Neolithic villages are all around. Mud brick houses, goat pens. Children run barefoot on the black, fertile earth. And 100 kilometers to the west is the Mediterranean Sea, which is approximately 150 meters higher than this lake. Between them is a narrow land bridge in the area of the modern Bosphorus. In 1997, geologists William Ryan and Walter Pitman from the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory at Columbia University published a sensational paper in the journal Science. According to their analysis of bottom sediments, the bridge broke at some point, and through the resulting breach, the water of the Mediterranean Sea poured into the freshwater lake. According to their calculations, the level rose by about 15 centimeters a day. The total rise was about 150 meters. The flooded area was larger than the territory of modern Belgium. To be honest, this hypothesis is controversial. A group of Turkish, Canadian, and American geologists led by Ali Aksu published a counterproof in 2002. They claim that the water flowed in the opposite direction, from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean, and that the rise was slow rather than catastrophic. The dispute continues to this day. But here is what is interesting. Even the opponents of Ryan and Pitman admit one thing: the level of the Black Sea in the Neolithic era did indeed change abruptly. Lands on the coast did indeed go underwater. The people who lived there were indeed forced to flee. Now look at the map. To the southeast of the Black Sea is Mesopotamia. That is where the Sumerian civilization would be born. That is where the Epic of Atrahasis would be written. Later, a man named Abraham would come there. To the very person from whom the three Abrahamic religions would descend. To the south is the Levant, where the Torah would be recorded. To the east is eastern Anatolia, Mount Judy in Sirnak province, and the Ararat Massif on the Armenian border. It is here that both Genesis and the Qur'an place the resting site of the Ark. Both mountains are in the same region, in the same mountain range. At the same point on the planet, refugees from the disappearing shore fled exactly there, in all directions from the epicenter, and the closer a people lived to the site of the disaster, the more detailed their memory remained. The Sumerians already had a distorted version, a square ship, and confused engineering details. Among the Greeks, where the wave of refugees arrived as a second echelon, there is a vague story about Deucalion's chest. Among the Indians, a fish and an unnamed boat. Among the Maya, for whom the memory arrived through dozens of retellings, it is a hollow tree. But among the peoples who remained at the very epicenter, the descendants of those who saw everything with their own eyes, a blueprint was preserved. The dimensions, the material, the name of the one who refused to believe, and the place where the ship stopped. In 2000, Robert Ballard, the oceanographer who discovered the Titanic, lowered an underwater vehicle to the bottom of the Black Sea 120 kilometers north of the Turkish coast. At a depth of 150 meters, the cameras showed rectangular outlines, wooden beams perfectly preserved in the oxygen-free water, stone, tools, and ceramics. Radiocarbon analysis of several finds yielded dates that are still being discussed. Some turned out to be younger than expected, while others matched the calculations of Ryan and Pitman. But the fact remains, at the bottom of the Black Sea, right under the water, lie the remains of a human settlement that, according to the history books, should not be there. Something happened in this region, something that the peoples of the Middle East remembered better than everyone else, something that they passed down from generation to generation with such accuracy that their grandchildren, 5,000 years later, recorded numbers that were first verified only in the 20th century. If the three Abrahamic books describe real events with such precision, what other truth is hidden in them? And what happened to those who did not believe the warning? The answer is in the Qur'an itself, and it makes one feel uneasy. Open the three books side by side. The Torah at the weekly portion of Noah. The Bible at the 6th and 7th chapters of Genesis. The Qur'an at Surah Hud, verse 40th and onward. And separately Surah Nuh in its entirety, named after the Prophet himself. Three texts recorded at different times, in different languages, by different peoples. The Torah, approximately in the 10th century before Christ in ancient Hebrew. The Christian Bible repeats the Hebrew text almost word for word. The Qur'an, in the 6th century of our era, in Arabic, through revelation to the Prophet Muhammad. Between the first and the last recording, there are almost 2,000 years. And what is striking is that they do not contradict each other on the main points. They complement each other in the details. It is as if three witnesses are describing the same event, each from their own side, each noticing what the others missed. The Torah and the Bible provide the engineering, the dimensions of the ark, the material, gopher wood, pitch, inside and out, 3 decks, a window on top, and a door on the side. The Quran adds something that is not in the Torah, a signal. In Surah Hud, verse 40th, it says Farit tenor, water gushed from the oven. This is a strange phrase. What kind of oven? Why did water come out of it? Islamic commentators argued about this for centuries. Ibn Abbas, one of the closest companions of the Prophet Muhammad, interpreted it as follows. At-Tanur is the face of the earth. That is, the signal for Nuh was that water began to gush from under the ground, from wells, from cracks, and from springs. Now, open a modern geology textbook. This is exactly how the earth behaves. Before a major flood, groundwater rises before the water itself arrives. Wells in villages begin to overflow days before the river bursts its banks. This is known to hydrologists. Pressure in aquifers changes first. This is an early sign that peasants and hunters knew how to read for thousands of years. An Arabic scribe in the 6th century could not have known hydrology, but he recorded a detail that perfectly corresponds to how real geology works. Let us go further. The landing site of the ark. The Torah says the mountains of Ararat. In the plural, this is not a specific mountain, it is a region. The ancient Hebrew Ararat is a corruption of Urartu, the name of an ancient kingdom in the territory of modern Eastern Anatolia and Armenia. The Qur'an is more specific, Al-Judi. This is a mountain in the Turkish province of Sirnak, on the border with Iraq and Syria. For a long time, this was considered a contradiction. In fact, both indications lead to the same mountain range in eastern Anatolia, and until the 10th century, even the Armenians associated the landing site of the ark specifically with Judi, and not with the modern Mount Ararat, which received that name later. Two witnesses, different perspectives, one region. Now, for the most subtle part, in the Quran, there is a scene that is neither in the Torah nor in the Bible. Surah Hud, verses 42 and 43. The ark is already sailing. Noah sees his own son, who refused to come on board. The son shouts to his father, "From the shore, I will take refuge on a mountain that will save me from the water." Nuh replies, "Today, no one will be saved from the command of Allah, except those on whom He has mercy." And a wave covers the sun. A father watches his own child drown because he believed that the mountain was higher than the water. This scene is not in other Abrahamic texts, but it is precisely what explains what archaeologists find at the bottom of the Black Sea. Traces of human settlements are found not only on the shores of the former lake, but also on heights, on hills, in places that the inhabitants of that time considered high and safe. People fled to the hills, thinking they were saved, and were swept away by a second, higher wave that they did not expect. The Quranic account of Nuh's son is perhaps the world's only written evidence of exactly how the majority of the population of the Middle East at that time perished. Not from the first strike, but when they believed the worst was over. 3 books, 3 perspectives on one event. Engineering from the Torah, a geological signal from the Quran, a human tragedy also from the Quran through a father's tears. Now for the question that truly makes one feel uneasy. If the 3 Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, have passed down details for 3,500 years that modern science is only now beginning to confirm, what does it mean? It means that either 3 different peoples independently maintained an exceptionally accurate memory of a real cataclysm, a memory that survived the fall of empires, the change of languages, the transition from stone to bronze, and from bronze to iron, or all 3 had a common source of knowledge, a source that knew more than a Bronze Age person should have known. I am not telling you how to interpret this. That is your faith, your mind, and your choice. I am only talking about what lies before us in the form of stone, sealed, and ancient manuscripts. And what lies before us is this books that are read today by about 4 billion living people, contain a precise description of a real disaster. Engineering confirmed by the Korean Institute of Ships and Ocean Engineering in 1994, and geology that underwater expeditions are only beginning to confirm in the 21st century. By the way, if this analysis caught your attention, like and subscribe. It is important for me to know that the topic resonates, and I will dig further. And write in the comments, does your family, your people, or your tradition have its own story about the flood? How did your grandmothers and grandfathers tell it? I read all the comments. And sometimes subscribers send details that are not in any textbook or encyclopedia. Now let us see how this memory reached the farthest corners of the planet and why. Even there, on the other side of the world, it was preserved. Transport yourself to the other side of the planet. The Yucatán Peninsula, the territory of modern Mexico. The 16th century, a Spanish monk named Diego de Landa sits in a mission in the middle of the jungle. The air is thick, humid, and smells of copal, the resin that the Maya burn in ritual bowls. Parrots scream outside. De Landa records from the voice of a local priest, a story that the priest heard from his teacher, and he from his dozens of generations ago. The story, later recorded in the sacred Mayan book Popol Vuh, goes like this. 4 times the gods created humanity. The first was made of mud and fell apart. The second was made of wood, burned, and was devoured by animals. The third was made of flesh and drowned in a great flood when black pitch poured from the sky and the water rose higher than the highest mountains. The fourth, humanity, the current one, is made of corn. The Maya have no exact dimensions for the ship and no name for the main character. Only the shell of the plot remains water. Darkness. Salvation in a wooden vessel, a new humanity. The further from the Middle East, the paler the memory. In India, the Matsya Purana, a righteous man named Manu catches a small fish in the river that asks him not to kill it. The fish grows, becomes giant, warns of a flood, and tells him to build a boat. Manu survives. The details are blurred. The plot: one righteous man, a warning from above, a boat, a flood. It is the same. In China, there are 2 parallel traditions. Emperor Yu the Great, who tamed the floodwaters for many years, and according to a study published in the journal Science in 2016, a real breach of a natural dam in the Jishi Gorge around 1920 before Christ, when more than 500,000 cubic meters of water per second surged down the Yellow River. Modern scientists link this event directly to the legend of Yu. For the Aztecs, a couple saved themselves in a cypress boat. For the Hopi Indians in Arizona, people were warned and took refuge underground. For the peoples of Polynesia, a canoe saved the last righteous people. For the Australian Aborigines, the most striking part, anthropologist Patrick Nunn from the University of the Sunshine Coast collected 21 independent legends from different tribes, Gunwingu, Yangyu, Jirinkanj, Ingajon, about lands that existed at the beginning of time and were taken by the water. Over 10 years of fieldwork. Nunn compared the geography of these legends with maps of the seabed around Australia, the result in his book The Edge of Memory. Published in 2018, all the sunken lands described by the Aborigines are real. They did indeed exist. And they did indeed go underwater between 10 and 7,000 years ago when the last glaciers melted and the ocean level rose. 300 generations. The story was passed from mouth to mouth for 300 generations in a row and arrived with geographical details that matched the geology to the kilometer. And in the mid-90s, Vietnamese ethnographer Dang Nguyen Van conducted field research among the mountain peoples of northern Vietnam. He collected 307 independent legends about the Great Flood just among Vietnamese tribes, 307 in one country, among peoples who live in neighboring valleys but often do not even speak the same language. The picture that emerges in the end looks like this. At the epicenter in the Middle East, the most detailed description was preserved with engineering, a signal, names, and a human tragedy. The three Abrahamic traditions passed this memory down as a sacred thing, complementing each other. In the inner circle, Mesopotamia, India, Greece, the plot was preserved, but the details were erased. China recorded its own local flood. For the Maya and the Aztecs, only the shell remained, without the content. For the Australians, only the coordinates of where the land was and where the water came remained. In total, according to various estimates, there are from more than 200 to 500 independent traditions. James Fraser himself, in his classic 1918 study, cataloged more than 200. Modern researchers bring the number to 500 and more. This is similar to how memory of a real trauma works. The closer you are to the epicenter, the more detailed the memory. The further away, the more only the emotion and the general image remain. Humanity remembers with varying degrees of accuracy, but it remembers, and that means only one thing. Let us put it all together. Three great Abrahamic books, the Torah, the Bible, and the Qur'an, describe the same event with an engineering accuracy that a Bronze Age person should not have known. The dimensions of the ark are optimal for a stormy sea. The signal of water breaking through from under the ground is what 20th century geologists would call a rise in groundwater before a flood. The landing region, which all three texts point to, is the same mountain range in eastern Anatolia, at the bottom of the Black Sea. 120 kilometers from this region lie the remains of human settlements that, according to the history books, should not be there. Wooden beams, ceramics, stone tools, traces of people who lived on fertile land and who had to flee across the entire planet, from the jungles of the Yucatán to the deserts of Australia. From more than 200 to 500 peoples keep the memory of this same nightmare. the closer to the Middle East. The more detailed it is, the further away, the fainter the echo. But everyone remembers. We called these myths fairy tales and the inventions of naive ancestors. Now look at what happens if the 3 books read today by about 4 billion living people contain a precise description of a real disaster. Then their authors knew what they could not have known. Either they relied on eyewitness testimony passed down through hundreds of generations with incredible accuracy, or all 3 had a common source of knowledge that was not human. Each of the Abrahamic traditions answers this question in its own way. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are unanimous in one thing: it is revelation. Science offers another version: it is collective memory. The choice is yours. I am only talking about what lies before us in the form of stone, water, and ancient manuscripts. And what lies before us is this: the people we considered naive remembered more accurately than we do. The books we considered fairy tales described reality with a precision that a modern geologist and a modern shipbuilder would envy, and the disaster they described is not unique. The geological history of the Earth knows dozens of such events over the last 12,000 years. The Bosphorus held for millennia before it broke. The Greenland ice sheet is also holding for now, while you are reading this from a screen in a warm room, with snow or city lights outside. And it seems to you that the world is stable, that history is something that happened to others in other eras, with other people. That is exactly what a fisherman on the shore of a freshwater lake thought 7,500 years ago. The day before the water turned salty, the one the Torah calls Noah and the Qur'an calls Nuh heard the warning and was saved. His son did not hear and died on a mountain that seemed high enough to him. The question is no longer whether this story was true. Too many pieces of evidence indicate that reality stands behind it. The question is different. What do we do with this knowledge today? Our ancestors left us a message encoded in the most sacred books in the world. They passed it down for thousands of years through the changing of empires, languages, and gods. They shout to us through the thickness of time the same message: this has already happened. It will happen again. Listen, and we have stopped hearing. If this story made you think, subscribe to the channel. In the next video, we will open another door, behind which something strange is hiding. See you soon.